In today's episode, we team up with Locked On Magic to discuss the Pistons' Friday night game for the NBA Cup. If the Pistons win, they move on. We'll break down and preview today's episode, Locked On Pistons Podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Khahil. You can find me over on Twitter, at Khahil. Been covering the Detroit Pistons for the last 4 years. Been a credential media member over the last 3 years. Appreciate all of you guys making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day and helping make Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network in America. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 in your bet. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started today. I'm recording this the day of Thanksgiving. I hope you guys are having a great Thanksgiving. If you guys are listening to this after, I hope you guys have had a great one. Just giving you guys a quick preview. The rest of today's episode will be pre-recorded. We recorded this on Wednesday. We'll be previewing the Pistons game against the Orlando Magic on Friday night with Locked On Magic host Philip, Rosman, Reich. It was a fun episode, but I'm not going to hold you guys any longer. I want to get back with my wife. So hope you guys enjoy this one. Have a great Thanksgiving, and hopefully the Pistons pulled this one out on Friday. Till next time, I'll see you guys later.
And this is Philip Rosman Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, joined today by our good friend, arch rival, nemesis, future playoff rival. We're friends. We like each other. It's Khahil of Locked On Pistons. Sorry for your loss. We're recording this on Wednesday night, but still a fantastic season for the Pistons. And we are looking forward today to a huge NBA Cup game. Like we are both Cup respecters. We established that before we started recording. But a huge NBA Cup game, the East Group B championship game, Friday night at 7:30 at the New Palace, Little Caesars Arena. Before we dive in, again, sorry for your loss today. I know it's a strange feeling. It's gonna happen during the course of a season. How you doing? How you doing this Thanksgiving holiday?
I think 28 losses in a row got me prepped up for what a loss feels like. I think it's been 13 in a row. It tried, but it hasn't completely wiped away the feeling of what a loss feels like during that losing streak. So definitely a tough loss, but we're good.
I think that's important to remember. Like we have seen things. The fact that we're sitting here talking about a game with actual stakes that we are both legitimately angry is not on national TV, although Knicks Bucks will have some stakes to it. We're recording this while both teams are playing. It'll have some stakes to it. It'll have some meaning, but not quite as big as this game on Friday between the Magic and the Pistons. And we've talked before, like we've kind of viewed these two teams as growing rivals, as teams that are going to be established in the Eastern Conference. But when we talked over the summer to preview this very game, which we did talk about back in August, did you think the Pistons would be this? Like I think that's the story around the league is how did the Detroit Pistons go from a team that everyone thought was going to be very good? Don't get me wrong. But to be this good, a 13-game winning streak, which of course started against the Magic. We'll take some credit for that. Started against the Magic in late October, about a month ago. What is different about this Pistons team that has allowed them to play the way that they're playing right now?
Yeah, so I'd start off with saying I'm definitely shocked that they are playing this well, that they are, teams play really well and it doesn't always translate to 13 straight game win streaks. Like you can be playing maybe just as good as the Pistons have played and be a 12-5 team and still feel like, oh yeah, we're playing great. So the fact that the Pistons went on a 13 gamer is very surprising to me. I would say what's the biggest difference with the Pistons this year would be Asar is healthy from the beginning of the year. So you have Asar from start to finish instead of just changing it the midway through the point of the year like they did last year. So I think that's pretty big to have your best defender out there from the start. I think Cade has taken another step this year, and he's gotten even better this year. I think Jalen Duren, obviously, he's taken a leap as an offensive creator and as an offensive scorer that really has helped them within the half-court offense. It didn't help him so much tonight against Boston, but throughout the win streak, he's been incredible, and they've had, I believe, the fourth best half-court offense during the streak, and that was one of their biggest areas of weaknesses heading into the year. So I think that has a lot to do with Jalen Duren discovering himself as a shot creator. And then Trajan Langdon kind of swapped out some guys like Karis LeVert, but Dennis Schroeder has been a really good swap out because Karis brings more size, length, and defense, so it kind of buys into their culture. But yeah, I think they're just playing together. They're a deeper team than they were last year. Even when they had injuries, they have guys that can come in and play well. Javonte Green, Dennis Jenkins has been a great story. So they're a deeper team. They have more talent on this team. Their best players are available at the beginning of the year. And they've been more focused game to game than I've ever seen. I mean, obviously the Pistons have been bad for a minute, but their game to game focus has been crazy. Which is why, again, I'm sorry to reference tonight again, why tonight was so uncharacteristic. But yeah, I mean, that's why I'm pretty shocked by it, but it's very impressive, obviously.
Yeah, and I think it goes without saying. There's like the Magic in 36 years have never had a 10-game win streak. They've gotten to 9 a few times,
For real?
but like it's
I did
for
not
real.
know that.
For real. Like they've
Even
they've
with
gotten
Dwight,
9.
I would have thought.
They got 9 with Dwight like immediately after the Gilbert Arenas trade of all things. So little fair warning, just because you go on a long win streak doesn't mean everything's in the clear. The Magic won 12 of 13 last year and finished at 500. It's very, very early, but yeah, no, like random stuff happens in the NBA. Like, I mean, even something like the game against the Wizards, where a lot of guys were out and hurt, and you needed this super heroic game from Cade. Like, random stuff happens. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. Winning 10 plus games in a row is extremely impressive. And again, I'm joking about some of those things, but only really good teams do that. Only teams that really have their stuff together. And so I believe we talked a little bit about this when we chatted in August. And I shared that I thought that the Magic going to the playoffs brought a like renewed sense of purpose to the beginning of last season before they really got hit with injuries. And I was curious how the Pistons would respond to that. Do you feel like a lot of the confidence that they've gained and just, again, like even like something like institutional knowledge, like we know what JB Bickerstaff wants from us. We've seen it be successful. How much do you sense that there's that, I guess, added layer of maturity of we've been here before and we're hungry for more to how they've started the season?
Yeah, I think the playoff berth really has played out. It really helped them a lot this year. I mean, within the first week of the season, Asar Thompson had a letter that he wrote to the Pistons fans. I believe it was the Players Tribune, where he basically talks about how getting to the playoffs was like the greatest thing he's ever done, and he's never felt something like that before. And all he thinks about now is wanting to win for Detroit fans, and that hearing the fans go crazy in the playoffs just gave him a special feeling of like, I forget what the exact words were, but it was like an open letter to Pistons fans about how special it was to play in the playoffs and how everyone feels that and wants to get back there and wants to focus in every day just to have that feeling again. We've heard Cade talk about how important this year is and how now they set their sights not just on making the playoffs, but being a legit contender. And we're seeing how well they're playing, and hopefully they can continue that. But yeah, I think seeing the physicality of the playoffs, seeing them have some level, I understand they lost in the first round, but them having some level of success against the Knicks as a young team in their first playoff series gave them, okay, we might be onto the right things here. Our defense, having that be what we hang our hat on, that really carried us. If we can just continue to be that throughout an entire year, teams don't really want to mess with us. Teams don't really want to deal with that night to night. And we've heard JB talk about that. We've heard Asar and Duren talk about that. Isaiah Stewart talk about that. So I think having that experience in the playoffs and seeing you be able to get to the playoffs and be like, hey, we're hanging with the Knicks because we're holding them to whatever points a game. Like they can't score against us. This is legit. I think it kind of has resulted in even more buy-in from everyone, even some of the bad defenders, into, hey, if we really play this way and buy into this identity, we know we can be great, and we just need to improve along the margins offensively, and we can be great. So I think the playoffs are playing a huge part in what they are doing right now. And I think that's probably the case for a lot of teams that are able to get their first playoff experience and taste what it's like. Obviously, we see some teams get to the playoffs one year and then maybe not get back. But like I feel like for a lot of teams, it usually trends in the right direction. And the Pistons are definitely using that experience to their help this year.
Yeah, and it definitely feels that way. Like, we could talk maybe a little bit later on about that first matchup between the Magic and the Pistons. That feels like a lifetime ago for both teams, honestly. But it really felt like, Detroit got off to like a 2-2 start. Like it was a little bit of a shaky start. And I remember heading into that game thinking this is a turning point for both the Magic and the Pistons. The Magic were 1-3 at the time. And it felt like that's a matchup between two teams, both with kind of the same ambitions. And the team that's more together and has maybe a little bit more maturity, the team that has more stuff figured out is gonna use that win and a big win against a rival opponent to kind of leapfrog their season. And boy, did Detroit do that in that instance with that game being the first of this win streak. Before we move on to the Magic side of things, you mentioned like all the different pieces that have come together, but what's been the most surprising aspect of the Pistons start this season that maybe you didn't quite expect to work that has or has come out of nowhere to work?
No, it's by far Jalen Duren's development as a self-creator in their half-court offense. Coming into the season, I wrote about this over on my Substack. I heard throughout the offseason nonstop, and it's why you heard them interested in names like Naz Reid, Miles Turner, Santi Aldama. There were legit questions in Detroit about, look, we have a great defense. We think it's good, but there are some long-term questions about whether this tandem can be a good half-court offense, which in the playoffs, the Pistons had the worst half-court offense in the entire playoffs. So there were legit questions about whether they could have this core be functional and be good enough within the half-court offense. And Asar becoming more aggressive. He's been more aggressive as a driver. I think that's helped. Even on some of his misses, simply getting to the rim and forcing a rotation at the rim, that leads to the Pistons, who are one of the best putback teams, second chance teams, getting easy putback to the rim. So that's helped. But the biggest, by far, impact has been Jalen Duren scoring like LeBron on drives. Like, this dude is scoring 1.3 points per possession on drives. It's insane what he was doing before this game tonight. So I don't suspect for him to continue to score at a higher rate than Jokic and Giannis and guys like that on drives. I don't think that's going to keep up. But him being like this legit impactful driver within the half court has completely changed how teams have to guard the Pistons and really has taken advantage of the way teams like to guard Cade within the half court. It's made it harder for them to just send two guys at him and willingly switch guys onto Jalen Duren. So that's by far the biggest surprise. I did not see that coming at all, and it's taken us all by surprise.
Yeah, Jalen Duren's been so impressive. Like you like the basics of what he did because he's just such a great rebounder and a big body. Like again, sometimes it's just size, and he's like honestly, he's the reason the Pistons are an Eastern Conference contender right now. Just that leap was so surprising. Again, still early, but it's certainly looking very, very good for him. The Pistons have been one of the good surprises in the NBA for a positive reason. The Magic still kind of figuring things out, but getting a lot better. We'll talk about the Magic side of things coming up here in just a moment. But first, a quick word from our friends over at DoorDash. The NBA season is heating up. NBA Cup action is coming to a close here in group play, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they are celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day. And you are automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff you'll actually want. With DoorDash, it's not just food. You can get everything from snacks and drinks to headphones, ice, and even socks, all delivered. One of those things is not like the other. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass. Plus, your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only, 50% off up to $10 the day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash in your bag all season long. We want to thank you once again for making Locked On Magic and Locked On Pistons part of your day. If you're not subscribed to one of our shows, if you're not subscribed to both of our shows yet, go ahead and do that because we truly appreciate it. And we want to thank you again for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. Obviously, we mentioned a little bit. Magic and Pistons have played each other already, and a lot has happened since that day for both of our teams. So I don't know how much we're gonna learn. We're sitting here on Wednesday night. Paolo Banchero hasn't played in 2 weeks. There is a little inkling he might be ready to go for this game Friday. I am skeptical. I would bet he's more likely to return next week when the Magic are at home, but that obviously changes the complexion of this team a little bit. Paolo had, I thought, a really strong first half in that first game, not so much the second half, and I think we could put the Cade versus Paolo debates to rest. Cade is much further ahead than Paolo at this point. Not that we're trying to compare too much here, but I know that was a talking point in the summer. But what are you interested about with this Magic team? Again, a lot's changed since we first saw them. They feel like a very different team over the last 2-3 weeks now. What has you curious about this Magic team, and what questions do you have for me?
So I think the first question, I this is somewhere I think Magic fans know I'm going to go to here.
Yeah.
Look, man, I've said this to you before, Philip, and I genuinely have been watching a lot of Magic basketball because I like a lot of the Magic players. I really like Franz. I like Anthony Black. I very much am a fan of Jalen Suggs' play. So I watch the Magic play as much as I can. And I just had to ask you, do you feel like they've been playing better over the last few weeks? Because I feel like they've looked like a better team over the last 2 weeks. And
yeah,
I don't want to.
That's not up for debate. That's not up for debate. They're 6-2 over the last 8 games.
I don't want to just, and I know I've been the guy that's been saying, like, I think the team's better without Paolo on the floor. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm just saying, oh, Paolo left and now immediately the team's just amazing. I'm not trying to put it all on him. But I from the outsider's point of view, a non-Magic fan watching the team without him versus with him, it just feels like the team plays differently. I feel like the offense runs a lot more smoothly, a lot more free-flowing. The ball moves more. I really like how Franz looks in the offense without him on the floor. Again, I'm not trying to cause a ruckus, but I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, from an outsider's point of view, it just feels like it's kind of hard to ignore that, like you said, they are 6-2 over the last 8 games, and the offense just looks much more free flowing to me. So am I off base here? Am I still just, reaching at the Hayden Paolo,
you're definitely not off base. Like I am of the opinion that the kind of free flowing nature we're seeing offensively, like, look, when you lose a heliocentric star player, you're going to have to change the way you play a little bit. Jamal Mosley talks a lot, we're a by committee team, but when you're down a player, you have to do your role just better. Like, whatever your role is, you have to do that better. You have to kind of elevate your role. You're not changing what you're trying to do. You just throw out like the some of the ISO possessions or some of those plays that you run to get Paolo going. You throw those out, and Franz is not I'm going to break you down off the dribble type of guy. Like, I'm going to run you off a pick. I'm going to get you on my back. I'm going to pass the ball, cut and move a little bit. I'm going to get out in transition. Like, the way Franz likes to score is very different than the way that Paolo likes to score. And, certainly, without Paolo on the floor, like, the ball is going to move a little bit quicker. It's got to touch a few more hands because there is no one guy that you're trying to kind of feed and keep in rhythm and keep going. And you don't even have like I think the Magic still view Paolo as this like hub in the offense, where if they get him the ball, if he gets anywhere near the paint, he's going to drag 2-3 guys to him, and he's going to be able to pass to open players and keep the ball moving. So I think I'm of the opinion that this offense is working really, really well right now. And some of that is they're facing some bad opponents. They face the Clippers, who couldn't defend a chair right now. They're facing some teams that are struggling a little bit, but don't like dealing with the size the Magic have. The Knicks are kind of notorious right now for not being super tough. And again, I am throwing shade at the Knicks. Sorry, Knicks. I like you guys, but like the Knicks said after both games, they punked us. Like, even the Philadelphia game, like, super kind of a small team, they were able to kind of bully him around a little bit and do what they want, do what they wanted. So I think that the Magic offense will get better when Paolo return, or will readjust, but will be more stable when Paolo gets back, because you mentioned the Pistons being one of the top teams in half court offense. Even with how strong the Magic offenses look, they're 7th in the league in offensive rating, which is a very weird sentence for me to say. They're 7th in the league in offensive rating. They're still in the bottom 10 in half court offense. And so they're doing a lot of things that are working. And I think a lot of things that they're doing now, they were going to come anyway. Like, the biggest problem for the Magic early in the season was just learning how to play together. They're playing a lot faster. They're trying to get out and transition a lot more. And they just needed to learn to trust each other a little bit more. And that trust has started to develop now with reps. They found their groove. And so I think what they're doing is working. And I think if Paolo plays the way that he was playing before his injury, and if you look at like his last 6 games before his injury, he was averaging 23 points per game, something like 5.5 assists per game, 9 rebounds per game. He looked like that first half against Detroit more often, which was probably his best half of basketball in the season. He was starting to do that a lot more before the injury. And so I think he's going to slide in pretty seamlessly and help stabilize the team in other ways, because, we'll talk about the matchup here, but I do think this is a really big test for Franz Wagner going up against Asar Thompson after he struggled with Amen Thompson against the Rockets a few weeks ago.
So my question to follow up on that is, how do you think the Magic incorporate Paolo back into the offense while keeping some of the elements that have looked really good to me with him out, while trying to do what Paolo likes to do? How are they able to do that, and how are they going to make that really generate that half court offense while keeping, like I said, some of the elements? Like, my biggest question with Paolo has been his shot selection. I do give him credit.
Yeah.
His diet has changed a little bit this year. He is taking more shots to the rim. He's not taking as many long twos this year. He's changing his shot diet a little bit this year. So I do give him credit with that. But I go back to like that Pistons game that they played, and I host a live watch party. So those people who are listening to this who did can back me up in the comments here, is that during that game, the Pistons were doubling Paolo a ton when he got to the paint. And when he went to the post up, they were doubling him a ton in the first half. I believe he had like 7 assists in the first half.
Yeah,
and
I remember crazy first half.
Yeah, he was playing really well, and they were doubling. He was making the right pass out of it. And I was like, look, you got to stop doubling Paolo. If Paolo is going to kill you one-on-one, then let him kill you one-on-one. I don't think he's going to. Stop doubling him, because he's going to be able to make it out, and you're giving better shooters, I should say, not better players, better shooters clean looks when you should just live with the one-on-one. And then the second half, that's exactly what the Pistons did. They stopped doubling him. They just played on one-on-one with Tobias, and he very much struggled in that second half. My concern with the Magic is that theoretically is Paolo's supposed to help that half-court offense, but if teams start playing him straight up, he hasn't been very good in isolation this year. Other years he's been better, but this year he's in the 25th percentile in isolation. My question is just, I feel like Paolo, if he was used as like a screener, as a DHO guy, as a guy just getting downhill, then I think that really helps within the half-court offense. Do you think that's something that you may see the Magic try to lean more into once he comes back with how everyone else is playing with like more free-flowing?
Yeah.
Or do you think you'll still see a lot of those isolation possessions like get soaked up? Because I don't think that helps the Magic.
No, I don't think so either. And I think what Paolo deals with and what he struggles with is like kind of the same thing that a lot of like young, like starring players struggle with. And I'm sure you can relate to this. I think so. This is where Cade was at like 2-3 years ago, maybe. You grow up your entire life thinking to be a star, you got to be like Kobe, you got to be like Carmelo and do jab steps to death. And like, it's all about the mano y mano. And look, you need that in your game. You're going to have to make a few of those shots in the playoffs. And the difference between winning a game 5 and being up 3-2 and losing a game 5 and being down 3-2 is your ability to make those kinds of shots. So that needs to be in your arsenal. I'm not like de-emphasizing that, but I feel like a lot of young stars, and I think Paolo is still at this stage where he's learning to be a star. Like I think I used this actually analogy on my podcast when I was talking about this. It's the Jamie Tartt Total Football from Ted Lasso. If I'm not spoiling anything, you got to play through him, not to him. Like he can't be the kind of end result. And so I think with Paolo, the biggest challenge for him for the rest of the season is getting him into a mindset of attacking quicker, like not holding the ball, waiting for the defensive set, and then attacking. It's catch and rip. Like if he catches the ball at the like the Magic have been really good when the Magic have been really good offensively early in the season. They'd run a pick and roll for Paolo as the roll man. He'd slip to the free throw line, and he'd just sit at the free throw line and just have loads of options, and the defense is recovering to figure out what to do with him. And it was just about him making that read. If he catches the ball and immediately drives to the middle or immediately drives, like he's averaging 9 free throw attempts per game. He's going to get to the foul line a lot. He's going to put a lot of pressure on defenses. And so I think a lot of the stuff with him is making quicker decisions. And I think, again, early in the season, the Magic are trying to play faster. Like that was a stated goal. And I don't think they quite understood what pace meant yet. Like, I think early in the season, they thought pace meant we're going to play as fast as humanly possible. We're going to take quick shots. We're going to, force our way to the basket when something's not there. And that's what pace meant. And it put their defense in a bad spot. It put them in really bad spots. And I think that's one of the reasons Detroit was able to kind of win that game. And on top of that, you're adding Desmond Bane, who's still trying to fit in and figure his spot out on the team.
And he didn't start the season off well at all.
No, he was terrible to start. I mean, not terrible, but he was not. They didn't know how to use him. They couldn't figure it out. They're better about it now. I think it'll still evolve.
Yeah.
Jalen Suggs was coming back from injury. He was on these like short 4 to 5 minute spurts, which he's not on anymore. Like, he's playing regular minutes now. And so he was just going like all out 1,000,000 miles a second because he knew he was coming out in 3 minutes, only playing 20. So it was just like, why hold anything back? And so I think now the Magic have kind of found a tempo that they're comfortable playing at. Paolo is not surprisingly, but when Paolo went out with the injury, he was actually leading the team in points per possession in transition over Franz. Now that's changed in the last 2 weeks, but the Magic's real like kind of bread and butter to their offense is their transition plays, their ability to get out on the break, because their half court offense is still iffy. It's still getting better, but iffy. For me, for Paolo, when he comes back, and it could be Friday, could be Monday, could be Wednesday, who knows? It's really still about making quicker decisions, not letting the defense set up against you, and only holding kind of those Kobe shots. And I joke about Kobe assists a little bit, but holding those kind of like ISO superstar type shots for when they're absolutely necessary, not leaning on those and trusting your teammates better. And, again, that comes with reps. And I felt like a lot of the mistakes Paolo was making early were just like, he didn't realize Desmond Bane was in the corner. He didn't think Desmond Bane was in the corner. And, the Magic have been such a bad shooting team, and they're not the greatest shooting team right now, but they've been such a bad shooting team. It's a little bit of breaking a habit of thinking like, me taking this shot's better than me passing to an open shooter in the corner because he's just going to miss anyway. So it's like, there's a lot of relearning that I think had to happen for this Magic offense to kind of start to click. And again, it started to click, but we'll see what happens when Paolo returns.
So before we move on, just want to ask you, I really liked, obviously I'm a huge Franz guy. I love Franz. Have you liked what you've seen from Franz this year? And also Anthony Black has really been impressing me too. I really like what we see from him. So just your quick 2 thoughts on them before we move on. I just want to know how you're feeling with them.
Yeah, just quickly. Franz looks like Franz. Like he's, he I think feels really comfortable with the pace that they're playing at. Like that was like Paolo early in the season, like not so subtly, but like wasn't super comfortable with how fast they were playing and thought they needed to slow it down. And, like a lot of the kind of like hubbub about where the Magic were at when they were 1-4 was just like Paolo didn't seem super enthusiastic in post games. Like when we asked like what needs to change in the offense, he'd like literally say like, no, we need to change some things offensively. These changes, not so expressly, but these changes aren't working for us. Whereas Franz was always like, no, this is going to be really good for us. Like this is going to, it played more to his strengths. And so I think he's really thrived in this offense. I think he will be very thankful to have Paolo back. I just personally think like Franz doesn't like the attention. Like he liked having Dennis Schroeder be the MVP for Team Germany at Eurobasket because, yes, teams were still loading up against him, but he had another guy to kind of dump the ball off to you and take some of the hero shots that I don't like that Franz can take. It's not like he can't take hero shots, but I don't think he feels that that's his game. Like I say a lot of times, like kind of the difference between Paolo and Franz is an unselfish player. You have to teach to be selfish. And Paolo is a selfish player. You have to teach to be unselfish. And I generally think for building a team, it's easier to do the latter and teach a selfish player to be unselfish and kind of figure the secret out. Getting a guy to have a killer instinct and just be like, oh no, I'm taking over this game. That's a little bit trickier. And I think that's where Franz needs to continue to develop. And again, he's made steps. I'm not saying otherwise. Anthony Black has always been kind of the secret key to this whole project because, with all the trades the Magic made, like Anthony Black was pushed to the front. And, there's no stat that correlates more to the Magic winning than Anthony Black's 3-point shooting. At least entering Tuesday's games. I don't have the numbers. I don't have the numbers memorized before Tuesday's game. He was 3 for 4 from 3 on Tuesday. So it still tracks. Entering Tuesday's game, he shoots 37% from three in Magic wins. He shoots 25% in Magic losses. And so, again, it's just a correlation, but I think it speaks a lot to the aggression that he plays with and how fast he wants to play and how much he is confident on the ball. And for 2 years, all anybody on the team would talk about when they talk about Anthony Black is be aggressive. Don't be shy. Don't pass the ball. Don't be hesitant. Be aggressive. We'll live with mistakes because you're just so talented. And it's taken Anthony Black a little bit of time to really feel that himself. And he talked about it after, scored 20 of 31 points in the second quarter on Tuesday. He talked about after Tuesday's game, I'm willing to make mistakes. I'm willing to take risks this year. And that mindset change, I think, has really unlocked him on that end. All right, we're here. It's game time. Let's talk about the keys to the game and who's going to win Group B and how each of these teams can win Group B and advance in the NBA Cup. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that latest push. Now, we are recording this on a Wednesday. The line is out for Friday's game, Koo. What do you think the line is for Friday's game?
I would say I think the Pistons are favored by 3.5.
3.5 would be a good guess. It is Pistons by 5.5 over the Orlando Magic on Friday's big NBA Cup matchup, over under of 232.5. If you're looking to get in on NBA Cup futures, I don't even think they have it anymore. I don't see it on here yet. So I'm sorry I even mentioned it, but we are at the tail end of the NBA Cup. The Pistons are the favorites now to win East Group B. So we'll see. Right now, if you want to get in on that action, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, this is Philip Rosman Reich again, the host of Locked On Magic, joined by Khahil of Locked On Pistons. We just mentioned the line to the game, Pistons by 5.5, as we're recording here on Wednesday evening. Maybe that's changed with the injury report that comes out and Paolo Banchero being listed as doubtful or questionable and putting that little seedling in there. Who knows? And again, we're both publishing this at about 7:30 on Thursday night, so you know information we don't. But Koo, what is your big key to this game? What do the Pistons need to do to make that loss to Boston a blip and come out and advance in the NBA Cup?
I think they have to come out and play who they are and be who they are, I should say. I said this on the podcast after this loss over and over. It felt very much like an uncharacteristic loss by the Pistons. They didn't lose because they played great defense and maybe their offense just fell apart. They just didn't hit shots. Sometimes that just happens.
Yeah.
They let out 120. Right. They let out 122 offensive rating against the Boston Celtics. They had way too many defensive miscues. Their worst defensive players were picked on and didn't give as much effort. I thought Jalen Duren had his worst. Excuse me, my goodness. I thought Jalen Duren had his worst defensive game of the season. I thought Duncan Robinson had his worst defensive game of the season. I know Jay and Ivey just got back, and I thought Ivey was really bad defensively, but third game back, you kind of give him a pass for that. A lot of miscues and a lot of easy shots given up, a lot of dribble penetration given up. And that's not something you really see from the Pistons, especially during this win streak. They're one of the best defensive teams in the entire NBA. You just don't see that very often, and that was on display against the Celtics. So you want to see them get right back to being that caliber of defensive team that we all know that they are, and just not let that go into 2 games, 3 games, 4 games. So I think that's the big thing with the Pistons. Obviously, you'd like to see Cade get a little bit more help offensively. But I think that's kind of like, Jalen Duren's not going to go 4 of 10. Like, he's not going to shoot 40%. That stuff's going to turn around. Duncan Robinson's going to hit more open threes. Like, that stuff's going to turn around. The big thing is that know what your identity is. Your identity is defense. Stick to that. and I gave him a lot of stuff for this on the podcast. I'm going to do it again here. JB Bickerstaff, you cannot come out and publicly say that this team's identity is defense every single day throughout the offseason, during the regular season. You're completely right in saying that. And then sub Asar Thompson out so you can bring in Duncan Robinson while he's getting his teeth kicked in on the defensive end. Like, that's not. And then sub Duncan Robinson back out a minute and 30 later once you realize, oh, God, they're attacking Duncan Robinson. Let's get Asar back in. And now you've done wasted 4 possessions. So, like, that's I don't want to see that happen again. It happened in the playoffs last year. It's one of the reasons why the Pistons lost. I don't want to see that no more, but that's what I'm focusing on.
Yeah, that this is the time to learn those lessons for those more important games in March and April. And I'll come in and play a little devil's advocate and calm the Pistons fans down. Orlando saw Boston on Sunday. They were the ones that Neemias Queta got injured in that game. Boston went super small, and things just get weird when teams don't have a center. And like Detroit got a lot of offensive rebounds in that game. Big reason why they stayed in the game despite some of these struggles they had. Things get weird when you don't play a center. And so Orlando is big. Like they don't hide from being big. They're going to play a center. Wendell Carter's going to play. Goga Bitadze is going to play. I think some of the things that Detroit faced were just the weirdness of Boston. And Boston, who has not been making 3-pointers, they made threes on Sunday against Orlando. They made threes against Detroit on Wednesday. So again, some 3-point variance. I think I think you would agree, and both teams would agree. 3-point shooting still a little shaky for both the Magic and the Pistons. And so I'll go ahead and say this. The winner of this game is going to be the one that actually makes threes and generates those threes. But I have to agree that like Orlando's constant battle throughout the course of the season has been to remember their identity and remember that defense is what powers everything. And if they don't defend well, things get really, really tough for them. I remember after the game against the Pistons, I literally sat here and said, who is this team? Like, what are you about? Because the one thing that we thought we could, like, the Magic played all of last season unable to make a three to save their lives. Like, if they were 32% from three, like unable to make it 31% from three, unable to make a three to save their lives. And they were still able to win games because their defense was so good. And what's been kind of shocking about the early part of the season is that, yes, there have been good defensive games. Like they just gave up 96 points per 100 possessions against the Sixers on Tuesday. Like they can defend really well. They've defended well against the Knicks. They've been physical. They've had these moments where it's just like, that's Magic defense, but it hasn't been consistent enough. Like if I told you the Magic were 7th in offensive rating and 14th in defense rating or 13th in defensive rating in the NBA, you'd be like, what's going on with the Magic? Because both those things don't make sense for this team. Maybe the Magic are more selective about how physical they are. And again, scoring around the league is up. So, you kind of have to recalibrate what successful defense is. It's again, at the end of the day, successful defense is you keep the other team from scoring as many points as you score. Like that's a successful defense. But again, it's about consistency. And I don't think the Magic have been super consistent on offense, but the big reason why they're on defense, but the big reason why their offense has been so successful is they're number 4 or 3 in the league in transition points per possession, and number 2 in the league in fast break points, and like number 2 or 3 in the league in transition possessions per game. You only get that if you get stops, if you create turnovers, if you get rebounds and get out and run. And especially against this Pistons team that has been so good on offense, that has such great offensive rebounders and is a pretty big team themselves. To me, that's where this game is going to be won is which team can control the glass, get stops, and then kind of get into their favored offensive systems or their favored offensive situations. For the Magic, that's getting out and running and getting out in transition.
Yeah, I completely agree. It sounds like the way you described the Magic sounds literally exactly like how the Pistons were last year. They were not a good half-court offensive team, but they were like the best transition team in the league. They were the best team on fast breaks simply because they had the 3rd best defense in the NBA. So they feasted on that, and their offense ended up being top 10 after January once Asar came back because their defense translated to all of it. So it seems like I know that the Magic have invested a little bit more in their offense than the Pistons have by going after Desmond Bane. And I know I always go after Paolo and everything, but I do like this Orlando team. Like I said earlier, I very much like Franz. I really have liked what I've seen from Anthony Black. Obviously, Desmond Bane's really good as well. I suspect that the Magic will continue to turn things around. I don't think, where are they at right now? 10-8? Is that
let me pull my standings page up real fast.
I know they just got above 500, correct?
Keep stalling. Yeah, they're above 500 now. Keep stalling while I pull up the standings.
Yeah. I believe they were like 9-8 or something.
Orlando is now 11-8. They're
that's what I thought.
They're playing pretty well.
Yeah, so I expect them to continue to work their way up the stand and continue to play well. I like the pieces that they have over there. Their defense should continue to be good. They have a lot of size. I think they'll figure it out. I just hope that the Pistons on Friday night, I'd like to see them win so they can be in the cup. Honestly, the Magic should go ahead and just give us this game because you guys will stay.
But we can't give it away too much. We need a close loss here. Like the stand, like I mean, the Magic have a 28-point cushion, but
it'll be like that. It'll be like that game. I forget who it was. The NFL game a few years ago where it was week 17. It was like, oh, if we just take a tie here, we'll both get in. And then one of the coaches was like, you know what, screw you. We're kicking a field goal, and everyone was mad.
Exactly.
Let's go ahead and just take the 1-point loss, and then we'll both walk away.
I want a home cup game. Like I'm a cup guy. I mean, Miami isn't going to be good enough to get to the top seed. So that's not an easy game for me to travel. I don't want to see that ugly yellow court anyway. Nobody wants to see that ugly yellow court. Please, please, Miami. As I think they beat Milwaukee. So as I look over my shoulder at the game, but no, like it like there are real stakes here. And we're joking a little bit about it, but like the Magic have had some heartbreak on the last night of cup action. They had I think a 32-point lead on Boston on the last day, and they were idle. And Boston ended up beating Chicago by like 34, 35 points. Last year they had like another 30-point lead. All they had to do was not lose to the Knicks by like 32, and they ended up trailing by as much as 35 and losing that game by 20. And it was just like, good God, guys, like really making us sweat and disappointing a lot of people around the league. I'm hoping that like a close loss isn't the end of the world. Losing on the road to Detroit, no shame in that. But I know the Magic really care about this thing. They've had some cup like quietly, the Magic have had a lot of cup success. They've only lost once in group play each year. They've been to the final day. They've never been eliminated on the final day. Players talked about it. Like, you don't go out and beat a team by 41 and lead by 46 if you don't actually care about this thing. Sorry, Philadelphia for that. But the Magic players all say like, we're motivated by this. We want to win this thing. Do the Pistons care about this at all? I mean, I think cup fever like varies depending on who you talk to around the league.
Yeah.
Do the Pistons view this as something worth pursuing?
They have not spoken much about the cup games. They've mostly been talking about just getting far in the playoffs every day. So don't know if they're cup fanatics like us. So maybe that ends up not. I mean, my favor here.
I say this to everybody all the time. Especially to cup skeptics. And I'm just like, look, you put the most competitive people in a room and give them a trophy to fight for, they're going to fight for it. And the teams that care about it care deeply about it. And I think the Magic are cup believers. And I'm sure now that we're here and certainly coming off a loss, but now that we're here and you have a chance to advance and a chance to win something, I think we're going to have a playoff-like atmosphere. I'm hoping we'll have a playoff-like atmosphere. Black Friday is always it's a holiday. It's always a holiday. Like the Magic had a Black Friday game 2 years ago against Boston, a matinee, and it was wild. It was a wild afternoon for the Magic. I think it's going to be a really fun game. I think it's going to be a really close game. And I think as we've had conversations over the last few years, Magic and Pistons are not going anywhere. This is going to be a little rivalry. There's certainly a little bit of bad blood. I'm sure it's in my comments already with Jaden Ivey back, and Cole Anthony's not on our team anymore. So don't worry about it. You're going to hate Jalen. You're going to hate Jalen Suggs plenty. Isaiah Stewart is still pretty hated in Orlando. Killian Hayes is still hated in Orlando. For a lot of reasons. But like this is gonna be a scrap. Honestly, I'm kind of expecting both teams to really dig in defensively, and I have a feeling this will be like any game that we've seen before because so much is at stake, and it's gonna feel a little bit more like a playoff game. They're not obviously like playoff rhythm yet, but I think this is gonna be a really intense game.
Yeah, I think so too, especially like you mentioned, the Pistons coming off this loss. Cade was obviously not happy at all after this loss, especially with how it ended up ending. So I do think they'll have something on their shoulder wanting to go out and prove Friday. So it should be a fun game.
It should be a good one, and hopefully it is not the last meaningful game this season between the Magic and the Pistons. No matter what happens, we'll still be friends afterward. I promise. Save some leftovers. Save some leftovers for me, and hopefully, Ku, I will see you in the Eastern Conference Finals as always. For Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rosman Reich. For Locked On Pistons, that is Khahil. Follow us wherever you follow us. Subscribe to us wherever you subscribe to us. We truly appreciate you, and enjoy the game, everyone. We will be back, I am sure, after the game to recap it and give you our perspectives on it. Until then, for Locked On Magic and Locked On Pistons, we will see you next time.